Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. It's something that is inevitable in our lives, but something that we greatly fear, whether we know it or want to admit it. And I am referring to change. Change. And a song just dropped in my head. This is how I always think of music. David Bowie, Changes. Turn and face the strange. Changes. That's how the lyrics go. We're wired to not change or not want to because it's comfortable staying where you are, but then you don't move your life forward, and invariably that can make you unhappy. How do we make those changes? Lots of different ways, lots of different modalities like hypnotherapy or NLP or EFT, and he practices all of them to help people make changes in their lives. He is Dennis Marciniak. He's back on the program with us. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. Happy to be here again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. And last time we got together, we were talking about hypnotherapy and NLP. And these are the things that help us make that change. But even before we get there, when you work with somebody, do you identify what the change is going to be? Does somebody say, yeah, I'm looking, here's where I am, and this is where maybe I'd like to go? How does that process typically take place?
Well, the beauty is if someone does have a sense of where they want to go, often I'll find somebody that just wants to stop something that's happening. Maybe it's a fear or it's an anxiety, or they feel that they're overweight and they just don't want to be overweight anymore. But even with that, you need to have a sense of a vision as to where it is that you'd like to go. I mean, people say, I want to drop 20 pounds. And, what does that mean to you? Is that just a number on a scale? Do you have a picture of yourself that you would like to look like, or you would like to go toward, and not just even a physical picture? Part of that picture really should encompass a sense of well-being, a sense of being healthier. I've worked with so many people that have used hypnotherapy to lose weight, and they come in and they're on high blood pressure meds and other kinds of meds and so forth, and all of a sudden they're moving towards something more healthy, something more positive, something more constructive. And then, I don't get involved with talking to them about their meds, but they end up going to their doctor, and all of a sudden you find out that they're taken off their meds. It's no longer needed. So we mentioned change, and the funny thing is our unconscious mind wants to keep us in our comfort zone. So if we keep, if we've kind of figured out a particular pattern or lifestyle that, hey, unless it's really causing me irritation or causing me some discomfort in some way, I'm ready to just stay on the couch and watch every sports that's on TV and so forth. And it's like, to get out of that comfort zone, you have a vision, you have a sense of where it is that I want to go. It's like if I hop in the car and I just start driving around, it's like, where are you going? Oh, well, no, if I have a destination, then even if I run out of gas or I see that I'm low on gas, I take a side turn to the gas station and fill up. But I ultimately get to my destination because I have a destination in mind. And it's important also within respect to us dealing with whatever discomforts that we're experiencing, that we would come to someone for help. I'm drinking too much. I need some help. That type of thing.
It's interesting. People come to you to stop something at times. There's many different reasons that somebody might call upon your help, but stopping something is actually making a change. It seems like everything is really connected to that change. Let's go back for a moment. Why we don't easily make those changes. Our subconscious, as you said, wants to keep us where we are because we're comfortable with it, even though it may be wreaking havoc in our lives. It's something that we know. Is it our subconscious? Is the subconscious doing this because it thinks that it's keeping us safe ultimately?
Yeah, ultimately that's the case. I mean, even we reinforce that a lot, and it's not a negative thing necessarily. It's only if you
Sure.
get stuck. Okay, I mean, you know, people talk about music from the 70s or music from the 80s or music,
Sure.
music from the 90s, or people talk about their high school reunion and seeing so and so. And I stay in touch with a few friends from high school and from college and from other different business ventures that I've been involved in. And there's a tendency to reminisce. There's a tendency to sometimes in that reminiscing, you kind of glorify or those days were good, but they weren't that good. I mean, they weren't good to the point where we kind of make a pay homage to it.
Right.
It's like, oh, that was so incredible when so and so and did this and he said that, and it's like, yeah, and I drank so many beers and got, it's like it wasn't that incredible. It was like it was not incredible the next morning,
Right.
in fact. So the beauty is that we can dip our toes into the past and enjoy the past. For some people, they have trauma in the past, and so that trauma, it's not just dipping your toes. The trauma may drag you into the past where you're constantly living in the past, or you're reliving those traumatic moments, and that's where it really becomes problematic. And the way out is to focus on the present and the future. Create a new vision for your life. It's like when you talk to someone who, and again, maybe this is a little too dramatic, but someone who's had some extreme trauma in their life, it's like it runs their whole life in a
Mm.
way. Everything's in the context of that thing that happened to me, and because it's so traumatic, I'm allowed to kind of stay stuck in my trauma. People understand it. People say they're there, pat you on the shoulder, and we understand. And I don't want to make light of anyone's trauma or unfortunate situations that have happened, but there's the possibility of creating a new picture of yourself that's free from that trauma, that's giving you it's putting you there's a possibility to be in a resourceful state rather than this static state that's like a victim and helpless, that doesn't have options, that doesn't have new and greater possibilities.
There's a lot of a challenge here too, in that we talk about somebody may have suffered a trauma, and we talked about traumas previously, how they may be smaller than the big traumas, the big T trauma, the
Right.
little T trauma.
Right.
But that could be holding you in one place as well. For example, let's say you never felt, and I'm going hypothetical here, but let's say you never felt super connected to, and you're a woman. Let's say you never felt super connected to your dad. Maybe subconsciously as a kid, you never felt that he gave you, the attention or the love. And I'm not faulting anybody for that. That's just maybe how he rolls. Everybody shows their affection and love in different ways, but maybe as a kid, you needed more. I didn't even know that then. And now you're picking relationships with men that don't support you. And these relationships maybe end over time, and then on to the next one, on to the next one, because as a woman, you're looking for validation that you didn't get in your father, but you don't even know why these men are showing up in your life. Why is this
Right.
happening?
Right.
How many times do you hear, I can't meet any nice guys out there. They're all the same. I don't know what it is. It could be that. preventing you from making a change to look for what does support you, but you might not be aware of it. I'm sure that happens a lot of times too, right?
Very much so. Yes, yes. There's a pattern that gets
Mm,
created, and again, interestingly enough, even though that pattern is destructive or at the very least counterproductive, there's some comfort because it's familiar. It's a
yes.
familiar pattern,
Yep.
and so, and again, the conscious mind isn't aware of what's going on. I mean, you can take a step back and you can say, well, you know, I had this relationship, and then I had that one, and I had that one, and maybe you can even see some kind of similarity there, but not necessarily fully understand how you got into that pattern. You just feel like you're following your likes. I have a certain personality type that I'm attracted to, or a certain physical type. But on a deeper level, there's something that's not being completed. There's just
Yep.
it's just kind of haphazardly going along rather than having a plan. You know, um, I mean, the whole thing with hypnotherapy and NLP, and we can get into EFT too, but you create a neurological circuit by repeated actions, and that becomes your default circuit. That becomes your, kind of like when I'm not really conscious, and I'm just relaxed and let go. That's the pattern I fall into. And
Mm,
again, there's nothing wrong with good habits. In fact, that's very constructive. If I have the habit of working out 3 times a week, it helps me blow off steam. It helps me feel, be healthy and active, and so that works for a lot of people. But other habits are maybe not constructive, and it's for you to decide that, not not someone else, but it's for you to you to take a look at that.
I've had hypnotherapy before. Even I did a past life regression, like, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. Um, and then hypnotherapy even way before we met, and worked on some things, maybe had validation of things I wondered about, but I find this part interesting. So I would meet women that had a lot of anxiety. And I was like, why am I don't want to be a therapist. Why am I the anxiety magnet? What's going on here? And I didn't identify this through hypnotherapy, but I believe because hypnotherapy opened my eyes to the patterns.
Mhm, mhm.
I sat with this a few years ago and I was like, oh, wait a minute. My mom, I never looked at it as an anxiety, but she was overprotective, and I had a fine relationship with her. She passed 6 years ago. Um, and, I still feel connected to her in a weird kind of way. All good. But then I thought about it and I'm like, I think those women are appearing in my life because I'm attracting them because I was used to my mom having, I guess
Sure,
anxiety. And
sure.
I'm convinced that that's why that would show up. And it's also been said that we don't even know we're doing it. Like radio transmitters, we're sending out signals and
Yeah,
others are picking up on them. So
yeah.
I believe I was sending out a signal that, hey, I'm Mr. Anxiety Helper. I'm over here. Yeah, I can help you out with that. And then it showed up, multiple times in a row. Um, then I figured it out and identified it. I'm pretty sure that's what the connection was. But it's funny how when you start doing this work on yourself with hypnotherapy and some of the other modalities, that your brain automatically starts making those connections whereby it might not have made them before. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Oh, makes a lot of sense. And the thing of it is that you know everything. I mean, if because some of this can sound a little woo-woo, it's like
Sure.
everything really comes down to energy, and frequency and brain
Yep.
frequency,
Yep.
and we're in different states throughout the course of the day. Normal active waking action state is the beta state, and then with hypnosis, we'll get more calm and get into at least the alpha state, but possibly even more calm into a theta state. And how we're acting throughout the course of our day. I mean, we each have our triggers, and sometimes it's just the energy that we're putting out that is kind of the attraction, or the repulsion in some cases if we're in a place where we've gotten all anxious and frustrated and so forth. But like we're talking, and this is maybe a kind of a segue, but we were talking a little bit about EFT, which is, they call it part of energy psychology, and or people, the name comes from, it was named by this therapist who developed this process, but it's called emotional freedom technique, but most people just call it tapping. And I don't know if people are familiar with acupuncture, but it's an old Chinese system that identifies different energy points within your body. And in acupuncture, you use the needle to put the, to in a sense, trigger that energy circuit or that energy center, or to stimulate it or to break it up, really. And so with EFT, you're actually, again, trying to change the circuit that has a pattern that you're stuck in, kind of. So whereas hypnosis and EFT uses a different approach to change that circuitry or to break up that circuitry. EFT uses the tapping on various energy centers, that, but part of it is that you have this setup statement, which is that you want to work on, basically. And the reason that you have the statement is that you need to bring that to the forefront of your mind. So the statement might be, even though I have terrible anxiety when I have to speak publicly, I completely love and accept myself. So the setup statement is, even though I have terrible anxiety when I have to speak publicly, that's bringing it to the forefront. But then the counter statement, even though I have that, I completely love and accept myself. Or you can go further. You can say, even though I have anxiety speaking publicly, I'm really going to knock it out of the park this time. So you kind of progress with that, but all the while you're tapping on the different energy meridians that are kind of breaking up your pattern.
Is it, and I'm going to go very basic here and maybe sophomoric in my description, but is it sort of like the points that you're tapping on are very impactful? It's not just anywhere, not just, I'm going to tap on my shoulder. I'm going to do the other shoulder. There's a reason for the locations, but at its very basic form, is it almost like you're knocking on a door and you're saying something to the person inside, and now the person is giving you attention because you knocked on the door, so then you can put that statement in there to rewire things. Is that essentially what the tapping is doing?
Yeah, I mean, in part. I mean, the knock on the door might be the setup statement where you're saying, even though I've got this issue, and it's taking it from your hippocampus, which is your memory center, and it's bringing it to your prefrontal cortex. So it's something that now is in the forefront. It's in front of you now, and it's like, okay, hello, I'm going to work on this, or I'm going to deal with this. This is what is in front of me that I want to work
Well,
on.
yeah, you know what it was? I was sitting on a couch in the living room, and then I heard the knock on the door, i.e., the tapping. So then I went to the door. So now you have my attention. Whereby,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll go back on the
yeah.
couch if not.
No, 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 you're right, because you're taking it to another level.
Yeah,
The setup statement is the first knock, and that and you're only partially
right.
responding, and then you
I
start
so
tapping.
I got off the couch. I'm like, I think somebody was knocking on the door.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
took four
yeah, yeah.
steps. I'm like, man, I'm not really sure. There's the tapping again. Wait a minute. Somebody is knocking on the door. Let me take a few more steps. And then I guess when you go through the routine of all the meridians or points where you're tapping,
Right, right, right,
when you get to
right.
the last one and you repeat it, now it's as if you open the door and you have my full attention at that point, it seems.
And then the pattern gets interrupted because you're off the couch. Whatever you're doing got
Exactly.
interrupted, and so you're into a new mode.
Yep.
And what happens, like when we talk about hypnosis, and you've asked me, like what would you suggest in this kind of scenario or this situation, because I think I had expressed previously that you don't really stop a habit, you replace a habit. And
Mm.
so in a very simple way for hypnosis, you can suggest a replacement habit for the counterproductive habit, but there's also on a deeper level, there's the element of allowing your own conscious to find within you a better replacement. For
That's it. I
example,
want to say, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's a key point. We're replacing it with something else. And
yeah,
once you see it that way, and as I understand it, most of this is all habit. We create the habit,
yeah.
albeit maybe not the best one, and we just live our lives with that. But does a habit have to have a pleasure connected to it, or we kind of wouldn't really be doing it? And that's why we're replacing it with something else?
Yeah, and it's almost an unconscious
Right.
way of approaching it. Like I had a friend once who, all of a sudden, he started clearing his throat every you know few seconds. It seemed. I guess it got progressively worse. Very uh, eloquent guy, very smart guy, but all of a sudden somehow he developed this nervous habit of clearing his throat constantly,
Hmm.
and ultimately, I mean, I wasn't involved with hypnosis. This was like back, just out of college and stuff. So I know he got rid of it. So somebody must have confronted him or questioned him or something, but he dropped the habit. But somehow he was getting some comfort from doing that. Maybe he was in a certain social situation that got nervous, or that gave him a few seconds to collect his thoughts, or however, it was doing
Yep.
something for him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have developed it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I once had a client, a woman who, um, she started playing with her hair when she was on the phone. She would like twirl it around her fingers and so forth. And then this became such a habit that in all kinds of different situations, she would be playing with her hair. And it got to such a point where she was actually pulling out tufts of her hair. And she recognized she had a problem. And so this was fairly early in my hypnosis career. And, you know, what I did was I basically inserted a replacement habit, but it was something that I invented. What I suggested was when she's talking on the phone, rather than playing with her hair, I told her to wear a rubber band around her wrist
Hmm.
and start just playing with that rubber band, even snapping it a little bit or just, twisting it or whatever. So on one hand, I replaced a really destructive habit. Uh, and again, she was a young, very nice looking woman, um, who was really creating a social problem for herself because she became afraid to go out. And so that got taken care of. And a lot of times with hypnosis, you have a few sessions, and the problem is taken care of, and so you don't necessarily hear years later. But the thought occurred to me the other day, that you replace a habit with another habit, and at some point this snapping of the of the of the rubber band become problematic in some way. So the beauty is to
Better than
not,
ripping your hair out.
yeah, definitely better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a stepping stone anyway. But ultimately what I've learned and what I like to do is to, rather than coming up, I mean, we even talked about it and agreed before the session, that I was going to suggest the rubber band, and she was good with that. But the point is that you can go a little deeper still.
Sure.
So rather than coming up with, in a sense, I'm going to use the word superficial. But it was just an artificial. Maybe that's the word. It was an artificial replacement. But you can suggest to the subconscious mind that you find within your own self a better, more productive habit to replace the hair pulling with. So that's more elegant in my point of view.
Well, and it's fascinating how this all works, how the mind works. And I've heard that before, replacing this for that, but I honestly forgot about it. But that is probably so important that that needs to get done. And whatever pleasure she derived from pulling her hair out or playing with her hair, there was something there, whether it was comfort, whether it was, something to rely on. And certainly, the rubber band around the wrist, taking care of that. Amazing. How do we find you, Dennis? If somebody's, got some challenges, they're looking to maybe make some change, how do we find you?
My website is unconsciousedge.com, and my phone numbers are there. I have an office that I can see people in person, or I do Zoom sessions. In fact, these days, especially since COVID, the great majority are through Zoom, and love to work with you and be of service to you.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It really is. And that's the change you want. Your life will change once you start digging into this. And I get there's some aversion there. People think mind control and all that. We already look back on previous podcasts. We identified all of that. You're not controlling somebody's thoughts. I feel you're handing us the keys to our mind so we can get it done with your help. Dennis, great having you on here. Thanks for the validation, the insight on all of this, and looking forward next time we get together.
Thank you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.